Hey everybody, welcome to the Football Frenzy. This is our fourth installment of the show, and not a good game over the weekend. The Ravens got smacked around on their own home turf, 40-25 by the Browns. The defense couldn't stop anybody. Offense played okay, but they kind of kept stalling out at bad times.
Yeah.
Just absolutely not what we expected from this football team.
No, it was not. You figured you had a chance to really step on the division's throat on Sunday, and Ravens just didn't take advantage. They let the division rival come in there and just beat them all over the field, up and down the field. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, and this team should be extremely embarrassed and make some serious adjustments and look themselves in the mirror going forward and say, we can't let this happen ever again, because to get stomped around your own home field like that by a division rival is a statement game by them, the Browns, against the Ravens, to say, hey, we're here and we're not going anywhere. And the Ravens just didn't have anything to answer with.
Right. And look, I know we've thrown a little bit of shade on the Browns so far this year. I mean, let's face it, the first 3 weeks of the year they didn't play well.
No.
They had one win to show for it, just didn't play well. But they have a talented roster.
Yes.
And in our predictions last week, I said I thought Baker Mayfield was going to have his best game of the year. I thought that Nick Chubb was going to run for 6 yards. He almost tripled that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, and I don't think it's a mistake. Not a mistake, but I don't think that it's a surprise that Brandon Williams didn't play in that game and the run defense got torched, because notoriously when Brandon Williams doesn't play, the Ravens' run defense is significantly worse.
Oh, it's bad. I mean, you just go back through the last few years, and anytime he's not on the field, the Ravens' rush defense it goes from one of the top 5 to 10 in the league all the way down to the bottom 5 in the league in a heartbeat, just because he's not on the field. And that's something they need to address possibly this coming off season, and also keep your fingers crossed that Brandon Williams' knee is not going to be a problem for the rest of the season.
Right. And you mentioned that certain things had to happen. The Ravens waived Tim Williams, former third-round pick just in 2017. He had 0 snaps against the Browns. So it was, he's gone. They signed veteran linebacker LT Fort.
Yep.
And then today they added Josh Bynes to the 53-man roster. Now, these aren't world beaters by any stretch, but it just kind of goes to show that this coaching staff is not going to tolerate such a porous defense. And there's no other word for it. They couldn't. The only person on that defense that showed up to play was Marlon Humphrey.
It was, it's sitting here watching the game, and it was just bad. It was bad. You looking at a team that in the last 2 weeks given up over 1,000 yards total on defense, and you just can't have that out of a Ravens defense. You don't. Sometimes you don't give up 1,000 yards through 4 or 5 games, but in 2 games, over 1,000 yards of total offense given up to the opposing team, and shake-up had to be made. And if it keeps going this way, who knows what might happen. You might see a little bit more drastic moves coming. We'll see what happens with this new regime under Eric DeCosta, but defense needs to improve rapidly, and it needs to happen this coming Sunday.
Well, and getting Jimmy Smith back on the field is certainly gonna help.
Yes.
We're not sure when he's going to be back on the field. Probably not this week. Maybe not even next week. They might even hold him out till the bye. Honestly,
it would probably be the wisest decision, just to let him rest up and get prepped for that Patriots game coming out of the bye.
I agree. And they're definitely hurting in that secondary. 3 straight 300-yard passers against this team, and you just don't hear about that against the Baltimore Ravens. Whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing the ball, that defense is always stout. And right now, they're 27th in the NFL.
They've been moving in the wrong direction since week 1.
Mm-hmm.
You give up big play. I mean, you give him an 88-yard touchdown run to Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb's a fantastic running back. I think he's got it primed to be a stud in this league. But they get an 88-yard touchdown run against the Ravens defense.
And this is the first play of the drive after a 5-yard penalty, pinned them back deep in their own territory, clearly on the 12-yard line. The Ravens had just scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to get themselves within 6 points. You get a stop, you go score a touchdown, you win that football game. And instead, the first play, and if you look at the replay, you have Tony Jefferson, Tyus Bowser, and Awasu, who completely over pursue, completely run past the gap and basically help open the hole for Chubb to run through. These guys were chasing ghosts.
Yeah, especially Jefferson. I mean, he over pursued by at least 7 yards going towards the outside instead of plugging the hole. I mean, you plug the holes. There's a reason why you have gap control. It's the force. You keep bouncing them outside. You have another defender on the field. It's called the sideline. Help it. Use it. Don't let them get a wide open, truck wide lane to just sprint almost 22 miles an hour down the sideline to score an 88-yard touchdown against you, to really break your back. Coming up that close, 6 points away, and you let that happen to you on the first play of that next drive there. That hurts. It hurts big time.
And then there's some people who were up in arms because after the game, on that run, Earl Thomas said that he stopped trying to chase the guy down because he did that against DeAndre Hopkins in years past and ended up straining and tearing his hamstring, and it took him down. And he said he didn't want to see that happen again. People were upset about that because they felt like he gave up on the play. Here's the thing, folks. He wasn't going to catch Nick Chubb. If you look at that replay, you can watch it from every different angle possible. He was never going to catch Nick Chubb. So me, personally, this guy knows his body better than I do. I'm not going to fault him for saying, hey, I'm not going to sprint full speed just to not catch this guy and possibly hurt myself.
This is very true, and I'm not going to say that he had any chance of ever catching him because, one, he had a poor angle towards him. Secondly, he just doesn't have the speed anymore to keep up with a Nick Chubb. But there's optics that you look at in this perspective of how the game was going. That touchdown right there, that moment, that singular moment in the final score of this game of being what it was, and you have a defensive player coming out of all people and making comments such as this, it looks bad optically when your defense has gotten torched and torched and torched in 3 straight weeks. And it's not really something you should have heard coming out of defender's mouth after the game was over. I get why he was doing what he did on the field. You just can't say it. Say it.
I understand, but here's the thing. Earl Thomas has always been like this. He is who he is. And yeah, when the Ravens signed him, you're thinking, oh my God, we got arguably the best safety in the league.
Yes.
Although he hasn't played like it.
No, he has not.
But what people aren't thinking about is this is a guy who is threatening to hold out, didn't want to play for the Seahawks without a contract, flipped off his team being carted off the field last year. He's a hothead. He wants to win, but he's a guy who you're not going to put a cork in his mouth.
Yeah.
Understood. So now the Ravens, they're going to be taking on the Steelers. It's Steelers week. Doesn't have the same allure, the same luster that Ravens Steelers matchups normally have because you don't have Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs anymore. Mason Rudolph is quarterback for the Steelers. They're 1-3. The Ravens are 2-2. Both teams are kind of reeling right now. Steelers, look, they had a great game against the Bengals, but that Bengals defense is hapless. That Bengals team is hapless. They're just. I thought, just based on what we saw on paper, that the Bengals might give them a game. It wasn't even close.
No, that was bad. That was bad football on the Cincinnati sideline, up and down. I mean, you saw the pictures of A.J. Green on the sideline during offensive plays, and he's just, you can only imagine what's going through his head. Man, I'm stuck on this team for how many more years watching this garbage? And it's bad football. It was the Steelers got themselves right defensively. They got some confidence. And as we know in this game, in football, confidence can go a long way. It makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel good about your team. And it's something coming off of what the Ravens have just been doing to themselves the last few weeks. And the Steelers feeling good about themselves. James Conner got himself right. That helped. I mean, 125 total yards, big time receiving out of the backfield, had his touchdown and 8 catches out of the backfield. He feels good about himself now. As we all have seen, the Ravens have had big trouble covering out of the backfield for whatever reason. I mean, zone defenses for the Ravens have been abysmal because you got 2 and 3 guys trying to do the same thing instead of just doing each individual job like they're supposed to. And it's killing the Ravens on defense.
Absolutely. And Mason Rudolph, another guy playing confidently, 24-28 in that game, 229 yards. A lot of dump offs. But you do what works.
Hey.
And they controlled the ball. They moved the ball down the field. Like you said, James Conner had his coming out game for this season. He's been not great the first 3 weeks of the year. Played himself a nice game. 8 sacks. They sacked Andy Dalton 8 times. 12 quarterback hits. So you're talking about a guy who got hit 20 times on 45 dropbacks. That's insane.
That was bad. I know he felt it after that game. You know, they forced 2 turnovers as well. It was under 200 yards of offense given up by the Steelers defense. They had a complete Pittsburgh Steelers performance on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get a little lucky. We get them with 1 less game rest for themselves. It isn't Pittsburgh. You know, we've got to get our defensive issues straightened out. But, you know, our offensive line has got to hold up against that Steelers pressure. You know, they're averaging, you know, inflated numbers from this last game, but they're averaging 3.5 sacks a game. You know, they're averaging over 2 turnovers a game. So we've really got to be minding our P's and Q's coming off of our first few turnovers this season against the Browns, and hopefully this defense is going to lock it up in that back end and get some pressure on the quarterback, because we didn't get enough pressure on Baker Mayfield.
Right. And you said about the Steelers' defensive line, their pass rush. Ravens' offensive line has played well this year.
Have.
They've been running the ball down people's throats. They were running the ball down the Browns' throats the entire second half. They just, you know, it got to a point where they had to start throwing the ball more and more. I saw that Zeus Jr. had arguably his best game blocking against a tough pass rush that the Browns have. I'm not too worried about the offensive line. Now, look, you're going to have guys like T.J. Watt coming off the edge. They're going to get to your quarterback, but Lamar's elusive enough that I think he can get away from those guys. He's going to take his sacks too. He's a mobile quarterback. He's going to try and extend plays. He's going to take his sacks, but it's still going to be a tough test. You know, when Roethlisberger went down, I thought to myself, that doesn't mean that the Steelers are going to be terrible.
No.
But they just didn't play well the first 3 weeks. Mason Rudolph is a solid quarterback. He might not be great. It's still too early to tell.
Yeah.
But Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, Vance McDonald, if he's healthy, we've seen that nobody on this team somehow can cover a running back out of the backfield.
No.
Tight ends are roaming free all game long every week against the Ravens defense. So it's been difficult, and what the Ravens really need to do is they need to produce on offense. And that's one of those things. I want to do a segment of shade here, because Ravens skill position players let that team down on Sunday. First one that I'm going to talk about, tight end Mark Andrews. 2nd and 7 in the first quarter. Lamar drops back to pass, throws a back shoulder pass to Andrews, wide open in space. Not only would the catch have gotten them a first down, it would have put them in fringe field goal territory. Instead, Andrews drops the ball, Lamar gets sacked, and on the next play, and they end up having to punt. They end up having to punt the ball away. Yep. Ravens don't score. The next one, Chris Moore, 3rd and 7. Lamar scrambles out of the pocket, trying to make something happen, extends the play, finds Chris Moore wide open on the sideline, and throws the ball to him. And now look, it wasn't a throw that made Chris Moore step out of bounds. He completely lost the field for where he was on the field, lands with a foot out of bounds. There wasn't a defender within 20 yards of him. That's a big play that extends a drive, puts you in a scoring position, and instead they have to punt on the next play. On the same on a different drive, but twice on the same drive, Hollywood Brown drops a pass that would have converted a first down, drops another pass in the end zone. The Ravens ended up scoring. Mark Andrews ended up scoring a touchdown there. But when you're trailing and you're trying to make a comeback, you need to convert every convertible play.
Yep.
You have to do it. And the big one, Mark Ingram running the ball down their throats. They're going for the game-tying score. They're down 1 score, and he fumbles inside the 30-yard line of the Browns, turns the ball right over to the Browns, and they go down the field and they score. And now all of a sudden, you've got 20 minutes left in the game, and you're down by 14 points.
That hurt. That hurt big time. I mean, we were moving the ball really well there. We were putting the hurting on them, running the ball, and then cough the ball up that deep in territory and give the ball away. Now, I'm a little more say forgiving of the Chris Moore catch. I give a little bit of shade towards Lamar on the throw. Now I get it. He was rolling out of the pocket. He was throwing on the run. But with him being so wide open, you can throw it a little bit more towards the middle of the field, give him a little bit more space to play with. Now, Chris Moore, he should come down with the ball. Yes, absolutely needs to come down with that ball 2 feet in bounds. But if Lamar throws it 4 yards to his right, he's got nothing but open space. Maybe scores a touchdown on that play because there is nobody around. Now, I'm a little more forgiving on that, but everything else, Andrews, how bothered is he by this foot injury? It looks like it's been affecting him the last couple of weeks. He's not as open. He's not as self the last couple of weeks. They're force feeding Marquise a lot. I think get the ball out to other people. You got to give some more targets to a Miles Boykin, a Seth Roberts who can do damage. We've got to really do some more things. And offensively, I really think we need to get back to establishing the run first. We're coming out throwing the ball a little bit heavy, and I really think get back to Ravens football. And do what the Ravens have always done. Run the ball down your throat, set up that play action. When the Ravens have that play action ability and forcing those linebackers to step up, you've got Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin who can torch you going deep. And that's something that I think we need to get back involved in.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And especially if you're going to go into hostile territory like Heinz Field, you've got to control the game. You've got to control the clock. Yes. And the best way to do that is using your 3-headed monster, although Justice Hill, again, still hasn't taken off yet. But using the running backs, using Lamar, run the ball to set up the pass.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson should not be throwing the ball 35, 40 times. No. I think there's only a few quarterbacks in this league that can throw the ball 40-plus times and win you a football game, and none of them are in the AFC North right now.
No,
so
not at all.
It's just, and look, that's not anything against Lamar Jackson.
No.
That's just not his game. It's not the Ravens' game. It's you play to your strengths. Your strength is running the ball, setting up that play action, setting up that run pass option, and finding holes in the defense. You don't have Patrick Mahomes on your team. And again, Lamar Jackson so far seems like a very good quarterback on pace for 4,400 yards and 40 touchdowns. Yes. So it's nothing against him. It's just that's not how the Ravens play football.
It's not their style.
Right.
And you need to get back to their style of football. And it'll help their defense. Everybody loves the big play. I'm as big a fan to see a 90-yard touchdown pass or a 90-yard touchdown run as anybody. But one thing it does do is forces your defense back on the field quickly. And when the defense is struggling, you don't want the defense on the field. You don't. And right now, we don't want our defense on the field, which is a far cry from what used to be in years past with the Baltimore Ravens. But you need to control that clock. I mean, it was an even split basically on Sunday between Ravens and Browns. It was pretty much 50-50. And that's not something that's been a winning formula for us when Lamar's been a quarterback. And we need to get back to that 2-to-1 ratio, close to that 2-to-1 ratio. And that means running the ball, beating people up. It helps slow down a pass rush. It helps slow down the linebackers' pursuit when it comes to running backs out of the backfield or tight ends across the middle. I mean, it really opens up so much more for this team, and it's something that they need to really get back to starting this week.
And that's the funny thing is that this is a team that leads the NFL in rushing yards per game. They're averaging 205 yards a game, and they're not running the ball enough. This team could be averaging over 300 yards a game.
Probably.
But now, look, that's a lofty number. No. But they have the ability. They're running the ball 30 times a game, and they're getting over 200 yards. Stick with what works, and if you have 8 men in the box and they're stacking the box, it just opens up so many more options for Lamar throwing the ball.
Yes.
It makes so much sense. Now, look, in the second half, they're down the entire second half. They're trying to come back, so I get it. And look, the Browns took advantage of some turnovers. The Browns took advantage of a porous defense, and they won that game 40-25. But that game was close until basically the middle of the fourth quarter, and then the Browns just took off.
Yeah.
Because at that point, Lamar's trying to force the ball downfield, throwing a 60-yard pass to a tight end who's double covered. A ball gets tipped out of the line for an interception. Ingram fumbles. The next thing you know, it's 40-25 instead of being 28-25.
Yep. So the way it turned out for us this past Sunday, the Ravens they'll figure it out. Hopefully, they usually do. maybe with some different pieces in the back end of the defense, it's kind of hindered communication. And I saw that Tony Jefferson was wearing that green dot on Sunday, and he was handling communication. Hopefully, they get it figured out, fixed. Jimmy Smith comes back in a few weeks. It settles everybody down, but pass rush has got to pick back up. Cutting Tim Williams was definitely a message to Tyus Bowser. You're right behind him. You need to start doing something, or you're gone as well. So we will find your replacement, and let's start making it happen.
Absolutely. You have to wonder what's going to happen on offense if some of these receivers don't start stepping up, because to get 5 receptions between your number 2 and number 3 wide receivers, that's just you can't.
Not enough.
It's just simply not enough. All right, we're going to move on to the playoff push. Browns are going to San Francisco this week. San Francisco, 3rd overall in total defense. They've forced 7 turnovers. They've also turned the ball over 8 times. And that includes 5 turnovers in that win against the Steelers in week 3. Browns feeling great about themselves. They're in first place in the division because of that head-to-head matchup with the Ravens. What do you see from this game? And the 49ers have impressed me so far this year, but the Browns might be getting hot.
It's going to be interesting, 49ers at home on a Monday night. They haven't had this big of a game out there for quite some time. They got the Browns coming in, the hot team in the offseason, maybe coming off their biggest win in probably the last 20 years, beating us at home, the Ravens at home. So the 49ers do 2 things very, very well. They play really good defense, and they run the hell out of the ball. They are second in the NFL in rushing behind the Ravens. They're averaging 175 yards a game. So their formula is, let's beat you up on offense, and then we're going to beat you up on defense, and we'll see where the cards fall at the end of the game. And they feel like they have a really good shot anytime they can do that. Matt Breida is a very, very hard back to tackle. He's physical. He's a hard runner. He's not a burner, but he will beat you up. And I think they've got a good formula to combat what the Browns like to do. Can they execute it? The Browns are coming in with their hair on fire, and Monday Night Football, another primetime game for the Cleveland Browns. It's everybody's all over them. So if they don't back up what they just did against the Ravens in Baltimore by going after the 49ers and laying an egg, it's all for naught. It really is for them. So they've got to come out with their hair on fire and really start to make a statement if they're ready to make the NFL feel like they're serious contenders moving forward.
Well, and the Browns have a tough schedule coming up.
Oh, yeah.
The 49ers are one of the 3 remaining unbeaten teams. Now, every unbeaten team last week except for the Chiefs and the Patriots lost last week. And the 49ers, they had a bye. So
another thing in their favor. Coming off a bye week, they get 2 whole weeks to prepare for the Cleveland Browns. So it really gives a lot of advantages to the 49ers. But they got to execute. Absolutely.
And then they have the Patriots and the Seahawks coming up after they play the 49ers. So the Ravens could be, if they take care of business, which they should, doesn't mean they will. They have 2 games against the 1-3 Steelers, the 0-4 Bengals. If the Ravens win those games, they're probably in first place heading into that
Seattle matchup.
That Seattle matchup. So Browns playing some better football right now. They've won 2 of the last 3 games, and we're going to see just how good they really are going up against that tough 49ers defense on Monday night. The Bengals. Oh, my God.
Can we just skip the Bengals?
Oh, my God. 175 yards of total offense against the Steelers. Gave up the 8 sacks and the 12 quarterback hits. Running for 49.5 yards per game. And then again, we've talked about it every week, and that's with last year's AFC's leading rusher, Joe Mixon, toting the ball. This team, they're bad. They are bad at football.
They're not bad at football. They're atrocious at football. They are starting to rival how bad the Miami Dolphins are, and we all know what the Miami Dolphins have been doing this season. Got rid of every damn decent player on that roster just to try to get that first overall pick, and the Bengals said, hey, watch what I can do. Hold my beer, because I'm coming for you as well. So, I mean, a team that is just abysmal. They're 30th in points scored a game. They're 27th in total yards a game on offense. I mean, their defense is just as bad. I mean, 27th against the rush, They do a little bit better against the pass. They have a couple of decent decent back end players back there, 17th against the pass, but it's just a bad football team. You got two bad football teams, and the Cardinals, I give them a lot more credit offensively. They've got some weapons. They can do some damage. Kyler Murray, it looks like he's gotten more and more comfortable. His completion percentage has gone up, up, up. He completed 68% of his passes this past Sunday. He can be dangerous against a porous Bengals defense. What are the Bengals going to do? Are they going to make a stand and say something about, hey, we're not going to look like bums? But I doubt it.
Well, bad defense, bad offensive line, bad quarterback. You don't protect Andy Dalton. You don't give him time to throw. He's not very good anyway.
No, he's not.
And the guy essentially started making $20 million a year based on performances against the Ravens. And you take away security blanket and AJ Green. Now look, he threw for well over 400 yards in week 1, didn't win the game. No. And he hasn't come near that since. Andy Dalton is not a good quarterback. They're not protecting him. He doesn't have time to throw. It makes him that much worse.
It is. And when you have a running game that you're expecting to be a decent running game, and you come into the year and you are just flat abysmal trying to run the ball, that makes his job even harder. And then he just loses, John Ross, his shoulder. He's out for a few weeks. So he doesn't have his number 1 receiver. He doesn't have his number 2 receiver. He's down to Tyler Boyd and a bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And a shell of himself, Tyler Eifert, whenever he's actually healthy. So it's just a bad way to go for Andy Dalton. I kind of feel bad for him, but then again, being a Ravens fan, I kind of don't.
Yeah, exactly. So going to be probably not a pretty matchup between those two teams on Sunday. I would expect the Cardinals to win, but it's the NFL, so any given Sunday, right? They made a movie about it. So, all right, but let's get to our predictions for this week. As always, I'm going to let you go first. What do you got for me? Ravens taking on the Steelers. Supposed to be a big matchup, just doesn't have that same feel.
It doesn't feel the same, but it's still the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, and you're missing all the names, the Ray Lewises, the Ed Reeds, the Suggs, the Palomalus, all the big, Ben Roethlisberger not playing, Joe Flacco not playing. When's the last time that happened? Neither one of them was in this game. It's definitely different, but it still means a whole lot in this AFC North. I mean, Ravens lose, they're in 3rd place.
Exactly.
They're not that far from the cellar at that point in time. So Ravens defensively, I'm still worried. Juju Smith-Schuster can definitely hurt them. They have a lot of weapons that they can still hurt us with. Whether or not they do, I don't know. It's going to be a close one, a nail biter for me. 20-17 Ravens.
All right. Me personally, I think Lamar continues his strong play. I think Ingram's going to bounce back from that fumble. Have himself another multi-touchdown game. I got Hayden Hurst as being an unsung hero. I'm thinking he's going to have 5 catches and a touchdown. I think they look, Andrews is going to be on the field. They're going to use him. But I think that Hayden Hurst showed his athleticism. He showed his hands. He showed how dependable he is towards the end of that game on Sunday. He was impressive in that 4th quarter. Now look, it's garbage time, but you got to make the plays. You got to make the most of your opportunities. And I think that he kind of opened some eyes. I think he's going to have a solid game. But I think that the Ravens defense is going to allow Mason Rudolph and James Conner to control that game. And I think that with the inability to cover running backs out of the backfield, if Vance McDonald plays with the inability to cover tight ends, it's in Pittsburgh. It's going to be a close one, but I'm taking Steelers 29-27. And it hurts me to say it. I was back and forth on this all night when I was taking my notes. But until that Ravens defense proves to me that they can stop anybody other than the Miami Dolphins, I don't think the offensive players are on the same page. The defensive players certainly aren't on the same page. And I just think that it's going to end up being too little too late, and they're going to end up losing that game by 2 points.
I hope not. You mentioned your unsung hero. My unsung hero, I could mention this every single week. Offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line. Nobody ever talks about the offensive line unless they do something bad. But if they control the game, running the ball, protecting Lamar, especially against that vicious pass rush that the Steelers can put forward, if they keep Lamar clean and the running backs, I just don't see how we give them enough time to do enough damage to us, to the Ravens defense. And it's just one of those things where you get back to Ravens football and you control that clock. I don't know that any team has enough time to score close to 30 points. I hope you're wrong. I really do.
Trust me, I hope I'm wrong
worried.
too.
I'm very worried.
I last week I was back and forth. My gut told me the Browns were going to win that game, but I picked the Ravens anyway because I think the Ravens are the better team, and they got their doors blown off.
Yep.
So this week, my gut's telling me, this is going to be a lot tougher than people think, and I'm going with the gut rather than with what my heart says. So that's going to do it for us here on the Football Frenzy. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'll be back to talk about the Ravens-Steelers game next week and preview the game against the Bengals. Until then, go Ravens. We'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.